Hello, I'm here. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Paul and Jordy are already here. That's really, really cool. Thanks very much for coming in. So today we are doing this. We are going to look at how I took my D&D diorama, and like that little faded picture on the left is what it looked like, and then I painted the frame, and I have a really nice kind of uh combination of burnt umber and black that I think did a great job because it's kind of a mottled finish. As you can kind of tell there, we're going to look at a lot closer pictures of it, but I think that's going to look great. And then the next thing is we're going to look at starting on the interior. The interior is something I've wanted to get to for a long time. Get. I've been thinking anyway. So that is something I've been wanting to get to for a long time, and so I made like a wall and this door, and I made some. They're called rat tail hinges, and from what I understand, they are. They did use these in medieval times. I mean, that was a standard hinge that they could use. I've got the strap hinges, and strap hinges on other doors, they're not functional. They're just plastic. I just used styrene. These are built out of copper if you look at that picture. And so I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you live how to forge those. And I think it should be cool. Hey, Scott is here. Hello, Scott. Thanks very, very much. It's coming from the great state of Texas. Really, really happy to have you here. So let's take a look at what I got. Quite a bit of work, not a lot to show, frankly, because it's a lot of detail. So here's Barrett's Coffee House. This is our D&D diorama. And I finally figured out that that top floor, it's right back here. That top floor is going to be an accounting office. And it's right above Barrett's Coffee House there. And that's the first two floors, Barrett's Coffee House. But because it's kind of it's like the start of a financial institution, stuff like that, I thought I needed that accounting thing up there. And so that's the accounting offices of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. And if anybody remembers like the old cartoons and stuff like that. Hey, John is here. Hello, John. John Robick is here. Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks very much, John, for coming along. And Dancing Shadow Diorama is here. Hello, Dancing Shadow Diorama. Morning, all. Thank you very much for coming on. That's really cool that you're here. So we'll look at how I'm kind of configuring the warehouse now. I think it looks a heck of a lot better by defining the framing. And then the warehouse, it looks like it's going to be the upright man's warehouse. And, the upright man, that's part of the story from Magician. This is my favorite fantasy author, Raymond Feist. And I started reading this book in the mid 80s. And it's taken me this long. No, it hasn't. It's something I reread each year, and I really enjoy it. And it's a heck of a lot of fun to read. It's very escapist. It's a coming of age story, but also discovering your powers, discovering what you think maybe as a child, and as you grow up, how different it can be, but also how kind of it comes back. It's a wonderful story. And Raymond Feist is a wonderful writer. And so if you're interested in those kind of stories, it is a very fun, very readable book. I love Tolkien. It's hard for me to read Tolkien. I love a lot of authors that it's just, because of the way that they write, it's difficult to read. Raymond Feist has a flow and a very easy way about the writing. And, when my wife and I have both read Raymond Feist multiple times in multiple books, and one of the things that we like to think of is when we're reading Raymond Feist, when he describes, they go into a pub and they're eating food, you're hungry, you're all of a sudden, man, I want to eat that, or they're going up a hill, your breath is increasing, and I mean, it's, it just immerses you into the story so much. So anyway, I'm not in cahoots with Raymond Feister, the publisher, or anything like that. This is just my favorite book. So that's what this diorama is all about. Okay, so let's look at some more pictures. And I've got live stuff coming up, of course. Let's do that. So painting the frame, this is the formula that I use for painting the frame of the all the wood. And it's not an exact formula. It is 60-40, 60% burnt umber, 40% black. And if you're thinking about doing this, I also like this combination when I'm doing like an undercoating for a diorama, for anything. It's a nice off from black. Black, sometimes it's a bit harsh, This tones the black down, gives it a little bit more depth. And when you see the black, you also see the burnt umber. So that's one of the things that I really liked about this. And then Scott says, Dewey Cheatham and Howe has evolved into a questionable law office now. My ex-wife knows them well. Thanks, Scott. Growing up, that was one of the ones that was repeated in lots of movies, comedy movies, and stuff like that. So I thought it would be fun to throw that in there. So this is painting it. And when you're putting this stuff on, it's an acrylic paint. They're both acrylic paints. I mixed in a little bit of water and a little bit of alcohol, not a lot. Denatured alcohol helps it to, pardon me, kind of break the surface tension. This is oak, and some of this oak can get kind of a little bit of a hard outer surface, and it doesn't allow things to soak in as well. The alcohol helps that. So when you're maybe having problems getting your paint to adhere to something, this is with acrylics, okay? Maybe a little bit of alcohol, sometimes soap, regular dish soap, that helps. That can have possibly some detrimental effects, but one of the things that I do sometimes is I'll take my my brush, if I'm brush painting, I'll take my cleaning water and I'll put a little drop of dish soap in there. Does a couple of things. Of course, it helps clean my brush, but with that little tiny bit of soap in the water that goes back in to paint with, that also can help break surface tension. So just something. But anyway, as I am painting this, I'm going around, I'm letting it set and dry a little bit, but then I'm painting it in. And by painting it in, what I mean is I will put the solution on there and I'll paint it until it's dry. I don't know if you've done that technique before. I thought, I'm like, wow, I came up with something years ago. This is when I'm doing woodworking. And then I found, no, that's a normal technique for doing like milk painting and different kind of aging and stuff like that. What it does is as the acrylic paint starts to dry a little bit, it'll gather heavier in places and it'll pull more paint off your brush as it's gathering, as it's drying on the piece than other places. So it dries with a very uneven pattern. That's why they tell you, when you're trying to put down a finish or something on wood or something like that, you don't want to brush it a lot. You want to try to just get it on there, get it level, and then get away from it, and let the leveling action of whatever you're painting kind of level out. And by leveling, what that means is the paint or whatever, like a finish, something like that, will kind of join together and get a smoother surface because it's not dry yet. It's still in liquid form. It'll level out. Well, if you interrupt that process, then you can have some more, some less. And that's exactly what I wanted on this. what we're going for here is a an old um, uh, European style building, and I didn't want it to be completely black, completely brownish black, or whatever. I wanted some age, some character in it, and this worked really, really well. Okay. Darkblade is here. Hello, Darkblade. Whatever happened to the sewer thing under the build? It is still there. And that's a wonderful question. Thanks very much, Darkblade. And it's great to see you. Darkblade and I have been texting back and forth all week. It's been really fun. So yeah, the base is still there. It's just over there. It's just easier to work on this without it underneath it because it's just quite tall. It is still going to have the underground sewer. That's part of the diorama. That's a full level of the diorama, subterranean. I love doing subterranean stuff. And then below that, there's an ancient temple. And it's all supposed to be carved into this rock cliff that this is right on the face of because it's a harbor town. So yeah, so all that is still there. I just haven't really worked on it yet. But it's coming up. Not today, but you know what I'm saying, I think. Great, and great to see you, Bill. Thanks very much, Darkblade. Very cool. So let's look back at this. So now I had this area. Now, if I go all the way back to the beginning here, and we're talking about what we're doing, this is the warehouse on the right-hand side. And what I said was it's possibly the upright man's warehouse. So what I mean by that is in the diorama, and we can just scoot it up here real easy, and I think it'll come into focus real nice. In this, I have 2 stories and a basement for Barrett's Coffee House. Above it, that's going to be an accounting office. And then in here, in this little bridge between this building and this building, and the building isn't just this size. And I want to clarify that as well, because some people had asked and thought, hey, is that just that size? I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit for you, make it a little easier to see the diorama. But some people had asked, is the diorama, is that the size of the building? No, it is only meant to represent a corner of the building. The rest of it does continue on. So it's supposed to be like a cutaway. So this warehouse, speaking, I'm not sure, man, it might have been Darkblade this week, but it also might have been Worcester Crimson. But said, hey, now what about like a secret warehouse or items of in high demand? Now, this is just wonderful because in the base story that I'm taking all of this wonderful information from, sorry if I talk myself dry, it's going to be no fun for anybody. What happens is in the storyline, a young man named Rue wants to get into the trading business and in medieval times. And so he meets a trader that becomes a mentor of his and introduces him to the prospect of trading in high value items that maybe aren't exactly legal, which is always kind of fun. And so in the story, there is an underbelly to the city of Krondor, where this is based. Sorry. And so what happens in that is he starts a warehouse. He is dealing in goods that are partially legal, and maybe I can sell it here, maybe I can't show it to those people. And then he meets an upright man who is in charge of this whole thing. And then he kind of takes over his business. And anyway, it's a fun story of trying to build a business, going through amazing odds, but also set in medieval times. I mean, come on. It is really intriguing and it's really fun. And the things that Rue, the gentleman's name that's trying to do all this in the book, the main character is going through. It's really a fascinating read, and there's a lot of stuff going on as well. But anyway, I love the story. So this is going to be like an underbelly kingpin called the Upright Man's Office, and this will be his warehouse with all kinds of goods that shouldn't be there. I think it's so fun to have that kind of element in a diorama, because it allows you to go ahead and give the dungeon master, whoever's going to be building the game profile for this, who's going to be ever, hosting the game on it, because it's a real playing D&D diorama. You're supposed to be able to play within it. I want to give them options. I want to give them things that are fun that can be done within the constraints of the diorama, and give them enough stuff that it's exciting for the people playing, but also you can change the story from one game iteration to the next. So anyway, all that goes to say, I wanted to, after creating these, start creating the interior, start seeing what it's going to look like in here. And this week I released a video really kind of highlighting the backside, because we haven't really seen that. I mean, heck, everything has really been focused on the front, but after I painted it, then I realized, wow, it's really nicely definable. You can see what's in there, and now I can start really doing what I don't know if it's a proper term, but I like to kind of call it hyper detailing. I really like building the little things within a diorama, and that kind of detail is the fun part for me. So it's all scratch built, and that's the part that I'm starting on now. So this week I built this, and it doesn't seem like much, but it's just it's a little door. It has a bar that goes across it, so you can bar the door. It also has a latch, and you can't quite see in there, but I've got closer up pictures of it. But you can pull that latch back, and it fully functions, which is nice. And this is the other side. That's what that latch is pulling back for you. It's it works on both sides of the door, but you've got yourself a latch. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and also these rat tail hinges. I really want to show you how to make those. And so on the close-up, it's a heck of a lot better. I do have my big lens up here, so we're going to show that. I can show you what that looks like. That's going to get in, and that's as far away as it gets. We're going to get that tight and show you how to make those rat tail hinges. So that's what we got today. Sorry, I've been doing wonky stuff with the camera, but I think it should be a lot of fun. Okay, I have some great comments back here. Mark is here. Hello, Mark. Thanks very much for coming in. That's really, really nice of you. I haven't seen you for a little bit. Maybe there should be a secret thing in the attic. There is going to be a secret thing in the attic. See, that's the other thing. This story from Raymond Feist, it spans so many decades and lives and generations, that hundreds of years, literally, that and I've been, by reading the books, by rereading the books, because I read Magician annually. By doing that, I kind of live in that little world when I like to think about it. So I can retreat to that. If it's been a really rough week, it's great to go in the office and kick back, pick up the book. I know what part I kind of want to read, and I just read that part. One of the things I love doing is just starting the book over and reading the first couple chapters. It's just fun. It's just like that rekindling of all those wonderful memories of that world, and how the author brings it to life for you. So I don't know if you do that. I don't know if that's something that you enjoy doing, reading a book. I know people that read a book and they never pick it up again. When I find a book and an author that I really like, I try to read all that they've done, because it is very much for me a point of how they write. Okay, so I wanted to do that picture because I've been talking about him. So anyway, yeah, it's Raymond Feist. So I am now going to take you to some pictures of all this gear. And I also want to talk to you about this wall that I made, because in making this wall, I'm just all over the place. In making this wall, I use the same materials I've been using. It's the same materials that I used on the top here on the floors, and it's this. It is some 1/16 of an inch. Man, I'm thinking it's mahogany. It could be hemlock. It honestly could be hemlock. I don't know. If anybody knows wood better than me, which is not a stretch, please chime in. I've had this stuff for 25 years. And a friend of mine, Derek, gave to me years and years ago, and it's wonderful stuff. I've used it for a bunch of projects. But if you can find something like this, it's a wonderful thing, because it's like balsa wood. It's in the thicknesses that you can buy balsa wood at a craft store, but it is so much stronger. I think it has a really nice use profile while you're building your diorama, while you're building furniture, which even I want more dense material when I start doing that, and we'll talk about that. But for walls, this is wonderful. Now, one of the things I'll show you is I want to build up a wall. I built this wall in a very specific way. Yes, it's got a door in it, but I built it so that I've got one profile on one side. See the shadows help. You can kind of see that on top. It's got the um, other boards put on there. It's called something and I can't flip and remember it. I don't remember. But the other side doesn't have those. So while it's similar and everything else is the same, it gives you just a slight difference on either side of the wall. So it can be used in both ways. The other thing I'm doing is, in place, when it goes in the diorama, it can go either way. I didn't think of that until last night, but for the dungeon master who's working on, building their storyline, their campaign, you can flip that. So the wall will be flipped. I don't think it'll fit anywhere else because there's not a lot of similarities in the width of doorways and blah blah blah. Everything is pretty custom, but you would be able to flip it around in place per game. So that's kind of fun. I think it's kind of fun. Okay, let's put that back. I don't want to break nothing. All righty. I had board and batten. Thank you very much. Yeah, batten board siding is really what I was thinking. So thanks very much. I appreciate that, Jordy, because I couldn't flip and remember it. Maybe there should be a secret thing. We got that one. I got it. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the secret things in the attic. Okay. So I think it's time to talk about building the door and going into the demo. So I'm going to go back over here and get to, there's the material I just showed you. I cut it to size, the whole thing. And that may be a little bit different if you're thinking about building up a wall. You maybe do like a framing or something like that. I'm going to show you how to do it a little bit different. So what I did was I cut it out the size of the wall, and then I framed it. Now, when I'm framing this, I'm putting a frame out just like you would framing a picture frame. I'm going to go to the top down over here, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how I do my woodworking and some of the things that I think are really important in doing your woodworking. And that is, sorry, I have to get that thing ready. But that is you want to prep your wood. You want to make sure, I'm going to use a smaller piece of this so you can see it there. And I've showed this before, but you want to make sure your wood is ready to be worked with, because if I try to do some stuff later on, some of these woods, the grain is so aggressive that as you're working with it, it can, you get a lot of splinters and you can't get the shape of the wood that you want. So remember, the shape I'm thinking about is these. This is like, think of it as trim in your home. So what I want to do first is I want to clean up the edge. Now this edge, even though it's really thin, I still want it to be square. So I want this top plane to come out square, this side to come out flat, and then the bottom to come flat to that. So everything's perpendicular. The best way to do that is with a hand plane. You don't have a hand plane and you think you can do it with just a hobby knife. Yes, you can, but it's not easy. And the reason is this: because you have a bevel on either side of the knife blade, then you're cutting in a V pattern. You're cutting in a V like that. Sorry, I'm trying to get in focus. Okay. So you're going to have a little bit of a bevel there. Sometimes you want that and it's okay. But with this, after you cut, if you do cut it with this, then I can clean it up and I can get that square. So I just take this and run it along here just a couple of times. It cleans it up, gets a nice, when you know that that's the entire width, you know that it's nice and clean. Then I take this, and this is a marking gauge, but I use it for cutting thin materials like this. And what it is, it's got a round blade right there in the middle, and I can bring that out from this face. I can lock it down. Now, why am I showing you a woodworking tool? I'm showing you that because it's so much sturdier than what I've seen, what you can buy in the hobby industry. I've seen something very similar to this, and it's made of plastic, and it'll hold a blade or a hobby knife or something like that, and you come out. And boy, if that's all you can get, that's wonderful. And it works great. And the wonderful thing about this tool is I can make repeated cuts. It locks down, and I can make, let's say, for example, I'm trying to make scale 2x4s. I can make them all day because this thing won't move. On some of those plastic things, that doesn't work. They wear, they don't last. This thing is heavy. It indexes well. It's not that much more expensive than some of your nicer hobby tools. So if you do this kind of work, I would look at the woodwork industry, and you might be able to get a better tool. I'm thankful that I'm a woodworker and I know about it. So it's called a marking tool. This one is called or is from Lee Valley Veritas. They're a Canadian company. Really great folks. You can get them online. I've been ordering them from them for 20 plus years. Really great company. Again, I don't know if you're supposed to say you're not sponsored all the time. I ain't sponsored by anybody, but yeah, great stuff. And I really enjoy working with it. So let's go back here. And once I've set the depth, or basically the width of the board, think of it in terms of a board that I want, then I can just go on here and then just run it right down there. And what it's doing in its real job, it's making a little tiny cut there. And in woodworking terms, you don't want to go real hard, but I'm going a little bit harder. And what it's doing is it's cutting down about halfway through that wood because the blade is just that long. So then I can flip it over, and again, because it's got that index there, it's cutting the same width, and then it just pops right off. So does it cut a completely perpendicular line? No, it does not. It's very similar to your hobby line, but because I have one side perfectly flat because of this, then I can do something pretty cool, and that is this. So when I cut a bunch of these. Let's say I've cut, 10 of them. What I'll do is I'll take my strips of cut wood and I'll stack them together. And it's fun that I'm speaking to folks that do detailed work a lot. Model builders get really in there because when a new woodworker is maybe starting, they don't understand maybe how detailed or how precise or how important it is to get as close to the wood as you get. Well, in this instance, because we have on each of these pieces of wood that's been cut, we have one, nice 90-degree flush side. The other one is not quite there. It's a little off. It's hard to tell. Well, I just want to stack those properly. So I want to stack those in the orientation where I've got that flat side, because every time I make a cut, I'm going to go back there and retrue that side. Well, then you can do this. You can just stack them all together, and then I just glue one side together. And now that I have that, then I can take that plane and go all along that side. Let's go back to the top down and I'll show you. I glued them together. I give it time to dry, and then I can come back and I can take let's say that's the rough, it's all clean now. Let's say that's the rough side. I just come back here and I plane all those down. So now I have a perfectly dimensioned 2x4 or 2x6 or whatever the heck you're trying to do. That gives you a lot of freedom. That makes it a lot more easier to create the things that you're trying to create. I think in your mind, when you're saying, okay, I need this many and I need to fill this place with this, and they're about that wide. Well, that's a little bit harder sometimes. And sometimes you want that if you're building something that you want. But in general terms, I think if you're constructing something to have what they call machined or milled materials that are the exact, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to conceptualize how something's going to be built. For me, when I'm building something and I go to one of these little boards that I've made up, sometimes I can just peel them off. It's super glue. I can peel them off. Sometimes I cut them off because I don't want to damage it or I need the whole length. But I can just go to this little pack. I can pull off my piece of wood and I know it's dimensionally going to fit at the beginning of this wall that I'm making or at the end. So sometimes I go a little bit long because I don't know if I'm making my point proper. But yeah, that's how I prepare my wood. So once my wood is prepared, let's say I want to do a little different effect. In our picture, and I'm going to go to that real quick. In our picture, these are supposed to be kind of like, a baseboard or like corning or something like that. And so what you would want in that is you want maybe a little profile. It's hard to put a profile on this. I showed you how to make, figure scrapers out of steel. I don't have one right here, but a scraper to make a profile. But these, I don't really want a profile. I just want to edge, really cleanly make that edge. Well, I've got to be really a little bit careful in doing so. And it's also something I can use this to do, because what I don't want is I've got a nice round here, but over here it's not as round, or here it's like a chamfer and here it's, that kind of stuff. So the same thing, I'm using my hand plane again. And as a woodworker, you get used to this. And as a model builder, you will as well. It's real simple. You just, when you're doing your pass, each pass, you don't vary. You just lock that angle. And you only have to do a few of those, and that's going to take enough to round that, and it's going to be consistent from top to bottom of that cut. And then you've got a nice round over. So look, it just took nothing to do. You've got a nice round over that if I cut this piece of trim and I follow that for all the pieces of trim I do, then as I go back to this and start building them up, they're going to fit properly. Okay, so enough about trim, but I hope that makes a lot of sense in trying to make these things consistent, and you get the look that you want. The other purpose of this is to strengthen the wood that I'm using. We want to strengthen that. Beth Green is here. Hello, Beth. Thank you very much for coming on board. Appreciate it. So once I've got these on here, what kind of glue am I using? All that. I'm using glue. I'm using wood glue. I'm using I should have it over here, but it's just regular yellow wood glue. I like to use Tight Bond. And the reason is this. CA glues, and I've talked about this before, CA glues are probably going to do very, very well in adhering the wood. What I really prefer is something that's going to go ahead and seep into the wood a little bit. These PVAs do that. This is a PVA glue, just like Mod Podge. You could use Mod Podge, by the way. But I think that a regular wood glue, when you're doing standard woods like this, boy, it's just manufactured for it. And while I'm doing all my regular sized, woodworking, I always use yellow glues and stuff like that, or maybe a Gorilla Glue on an oil, kind of a hardwood with high oil content. You would use maybe a Gorilla Glue. So I'm using just regular glue. I'm gluing them on there, and I am setting them up, and I'm letting them dry. It's real easy because we get in the mode of using accelerators and stuff like that to think something's dry. With wood glue, you're going to want to let it dry. Clamping pressure, it doesn't need a lot. It needs to be aligned properly, but little clamps like this work wonderfully. But let it clamp for 1 hour minimum. Don't try to, after 1 hour, you can remove your clamps, but it should still dry for a couple more hours. If you start doing other stuff with it, it's not like a CA glue. It's not going to be dry. And you could lose your trim. You could lose some of your detail. So just be real careful about it. Hey, Waylands is here. Hello. Thanks very much. Oh, and John had a question. The wood block jig that you're using has perpendicular feet. Is that for having the base for more stable base? Yes, you're absolutely correct, John. And there's a couple things about this too. It's kind of it's a hybrid, like a Japanese style bench, where it's just basically flat piece of wood, and you use your own weight to work on it, and then there's like a stop. This is just a miniature version of that same thing, and then there's a removable stop. That's the slot in the top of it that allows me to make cuts and things on it. So yeah, it's a fun little thing, just as have something on the bench so you can really quickly and easily get to it. I have the full wood shop behind us here, of course, but it's nice to be right at the bench to do all this woodworking. And then Wheelans is here. Thanks very much, Wheelans. It's great to see you. So I want to get back to some pictures. No, that's the top down. I'm going to do pictures and show you where we're heading here. Once I've got that on there, here's where the similar on both sides went. So if you see here, I put the border around the outside, and then I came back in and cut out the door. I think this can't be overstated. When you're working with thin woods, be it balsa wood, be it this kind of wood, when you do a cut along the grain, you see the streaks in it and stuff like that. That's the grain of your wood. As you're doing cuts along the grain, it's so easy to split. That works wonderful for you, but splits can follow grain and go off the direction of where you want it to go. To prevent that, that's why putting this frame around here and gluing it on both sides, I did that to both sides, that stabilizes the wood. It gives it strength and rigidity by having this header above the door before I did the vertical cut. That header glued in on both sides over the door, that also helps it from splitting past that point. So that's just a tip. That'll help. Don't think, well, it's easy enough. I don't have that stuff in there. I can go ahead and cut it out. You can, but it increases the possibility that the wood could split on you. So I put my framing all the way around it. I'm using wood glue. I'm just lining it up. After it's been glued on and after it's been set in, I do like to go over it with a very light sandpaper. You don't want to have anything that you're going to be handling to have any splinters, any rough spots, any sharp corners. Even if you're trying to make something that looks, I don't know, very contemporary or something like that. The reason is it could snag on people's clothing. It could snag on something as you're reaching across it. It opens the wood up to splitting. So not heavily rounded corners. It's not 1971. But, just knock those corners down a little bit so that you don't have any snags, because that can ruin a day, when you're doing your woodworking. Okay, so we're going to get to hardware here next. I'm going to talk to you about, and if there's any questions about the woodworking part of it, it really is just defining your shape, applying this almost like an applique, and letting each portion of it dry. Let's look at a couple more pictures. In placing, that's not what I wanted. In placing the boards here on it, I'm defining the outer perimeter, and then I'm doing the fill-in. In the fill-in, you'll notice here that I've got boards all the way along the bottom like wainscoting. It's just glue. I define the outside of it, I cut them to size, and I drop them right inside there. If one's shy, I like to put a little spacing. I'm not putting this board in here to get, gosh darn it, sorry about that. I'm not putting this wainscoting in there to fill that, to get like this mono look. It's not a filler. I'm doing it to gather shadows. I'm doing it to gather interest and get some weight to this wall. So when you're doing this, don't measure them so that they're going to fit in there perfectly. There are times for that, certainly. But in this instance, I want them to be so that they don't necessarily fill that space. And then after I put them in, I get the glue in there and I get them all put in there. Then I'm using a stylus or something to move them around a little bit and get a little gap in there. Anytime I'm building something, anytime I'm building anything, scratch built, shadows have to be part of the thought process, because that's where you get your definition. It's not necessarily just gluing something on there. It's the shadow that it creates and how the light plays on the top of it, the bottom, the lack of the light on the bottom, everything. So I'm always thinking of shadows when I'm building something, even in these vertical doors, because sometimes, or vertical slats, and you can see with these up here, your light changes from all the time. So you definitely want to think, where's the shadow going to go? That should guide a lot of your design as well. Okay. Babidi. Top down. No, we want pictures. The next thing I had to do was make this latch. And to make this latch, I'm not sure if anybody has seen what an old style latch is, but basically it has, well, I've got better pictures of it. It has this sliding bar, but that means I had to make a slot in that little door, and we're going to come back to this, how I did it. But and then make the latch itself, and then the steel work around it. And it does go all the way through, so that little slot, so you can unlatch the door from either side. So that's, and then you've got a bar that you can place over it. So we're going to look at that next, and then we'll look at that. This is my 3-in-1 steel machine. We'll look at that. That allows me to cut these little strips of steel, and I'll show you the steel that I used to make all the hardware. One of the things that I thought about in doing this was making a strap hinge. And my background in manufacturing and woodworking and software and all that kind of stuff, makes me want to make jigs and tools and things like that. When I started doing that, I thought about automating the process of making strap hinges. I know how to do it. I mean, it's just there's a you make a 9 in a piece of steel, and you drive the material down into it, and it curls up onto itself. You drop it out the side. There you go. That's your hinge making process, just physically doing it with the steel. But I thought, I want to make it more period. And while they had strap hinges in medieval times, you have to think it was also a point of cost. A strap hinge was very expensive. Steel, you just didn't go to the hardware store. You had to go to um the blacksmith. You had to go and find and see if they had something. You had to pay for that stuff. And so when I'm thinking of an interior door, do I want a big old strap hinge, which I've got represented on the outside? So it's not like I'm underrepresenting what needs to be in the building. But I think a different kind of hinge, a different type of system for opening and doors and latching and all that kind of stuff needed to be. And that's where I went in and found this rat tail hinge. So sometimes I don't know where I want to go next. I wasn't sure if I wanted to show you this or that. So I'm going to show you the rat tail hinge and how to make it, because it might be a little funner than this other metalworking stuff. And then we'll get to that in a second. So we're going to look at a rat tail hinge. Do I have a picture of one? No, I don't. I've got pictures of the ones I made. And so we're going to look at those next. But I really should have probably had like a schematic of it or something like that. So I'm going to find, here we go. So this is a rat tail hinge. And there's multiple types. On the right hand side of this, that is the door frame. There are two circular forged iron loops, basically, that are either screwed into the frame or even hammered, and then on the other side. So what they would do is they would hammer it into the door go all the way through the door, and then hammer down the tip, bend it over so it couldn't be pulled back out. So that's one way of inserting basically those two that would become the hinge on the frame. The other one goes up through those two loops, basically, these forged iron loops, takes an angle, and the same kind of thing. It is either screwed into the door itself, the heavy wooden door, or it's driven in and pounded down. So that is a rat tail hinge. Sometimes it wouldn't have two of the loops. Sometimes it was literally just be a hook, and there was your hinge. It was a very, very simple hinge, but it was something that any blacksmith apprentice could make. It was inexpensive. It was cheap. It was functional. It was heavy. So it worked. So that's what we're going to make. I am going to show you how to make them out of 20 AWG wire. It's solid core wire. So if you're in electronics, you can find it. I wouldn't use brass for this. The reason is copper is pretty flexible. Brass, when you work it, it wants to fracture. So if you have a lot of brass for your regular woodworking, model building, diorama building, and things like that, I would not recommend using brass. You can bend brass. You can do a lot with brass. But when you heat brass, brass has a tendency to fracture. And we're going to be hammering this stuff. I'm going to show you how to actually hand forge this stuff. And there's a couple of things I think will be a lot of fun about it. Darkblade says, sorry. I got to get over here and say hi to some folks. Darkblade says, after you finish this diorama, do you have any ideas for future dioramas? Oh, yeah. It's just like a constant thing. I absolutely do. I don't know which idea that I'm going to go with yet, though. I really don't. I love the different genres that I go into. I love the fact that I'm doing D&D and medieval right now. My last one was World War I. Prior to that, it was sci-fi on a new planet. Prior to that, it was World War II and based on a video game, Wolfenstein. So I really like the variety of that. I certainly have things that I really enjoy. I love North Africa, World War II, that era. I I love World War One. But I like to move around. I really enjoyed Machine and Krieger. This particular diorama has been living in my head since I was in my 20s. I'm going to be 60 this year. And I gotta tell you, doing something like this, there's so much stored up ideas and things like that for this diorama because just walking around in that world in my mind for years, it's going to be pretty fun. So yeah, I do have some other ideas, but man, right now it's all this. Neil is here. Hello, Neil. Thank you very much for coming in. Haven't seen you for a little bit. I hope you're well. Neil does the most amazing 1/6 scale World War One and World War II dioramas, and they're massive. I mean, 1/6 scale, and it's not like, I mean, he does do like a figure and like a base and stuff like that, which are wonderful. But he does these massive room-filling dioramas. Amazing. Thank you very much for coming on, Neil. It's really, really cool to see you. Homefront Forge, hello. It's very fun to learn and combine woodworking, blacksmithing, well, forging anyway, and model building, all things I do too. That's wonderful. Very cool, Homefront Forge. I think that by mixing up those things, you're bringing something a little bit from one to the other. I think that cross-pollination of skills, ideas, techniques, tools, I think they have a great place in diorama building. And if you can build a diorama that utilizes all your tools and your interests, that's the other thing we're talking about here. These are your interests. Boy, it makes it so personal, and it makes it, it makes it fun to watch. Or experience. I work on these dioramas for months, over a year in many cases. And sometimes that passion for that project can wane. And you may have find difficulty in staying motivated. I think that can be alleviated somewhat by having such a strong interest or such a strong passion about the subject you're doing, in lieu of doing something like that's interesting, I'll give that a shot. That might lead you into a completely new area, like it did me with Machine and Krieger, because I absolutely fell in love with the world and the modeling. But at the same time, if you go into one and you don't find that connection instantaneous, like I did with Machine and Krieger, if you don't find that, then it can be a chore. So yeah, trying to bring all that stuff together, Homefront Forge, I think would be really, really fun in a diorama. And the director maybe makes sense for a movie like Predator or SMT. Yeah, I think one of the things that I do, and I've mentioned this before, is that building these dioramas, I kind of see them as a movie scene. It helps me to think about it, because if you look at it and it's not like dressed up like a movie scene or detailed like a movie scene, then I don't think it sets the mood or the area. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I mean, that's this whole thing. Willen says, so the hobby butterfly is also around in scale modeling, not only among wargamers. That's awesome. It really needs to be, because there's so many fun elements in all these little kind of genres and stuff like that. If I think you stick in one, you miss something that's just wonderful happening in another. So yeah, I think looking at all of it is brilliant. There you go. Great comments, everybody. Thank you very much. And I'm trying to get these cleared so I can get over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this. Now, all these tools and stuff, I just got my Amazon affiliate thing. And so I'm trying to link in a lot more of the things that I work with. Sorry, I gotta refire that. My camera doesn't like to stay on. Just this one. Please, please, please. This is a very mild material. Don't use your plastic clippers on these. Wow, yeah, it would do a number on them. So this is soft, solid core wire. You don't want to get anything like welding wire because it looks the same on the outside, but it's got like a tungsten, center and stuff, and it'll break these or dent them. So I take a little bit off of it, and it's always a little bit wonky, and I like to get them a little nicer when I'm going to work on them. And this is just a hardwood block, and hardwood is the key here. If you use something like a cutoff 2x4, it's pine or something like that, it's not going to work as well because the wood isn't hard enough to do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just on my desktop, and I'm going to roll this. Okay, and by rolling it, what it does is, you see, it just straightens it. It's not gonna, if there's little stuff in there, you can go really hard, and you can go on harder surfaces if you have like really hard kinks in there, but it's not gonna make it perfectly straight, but it does a darn nice job. Okay, the harder the two surfaces that you do this between, the more straight it'll be, but it also becomes an issue. So anyway, that's just a little trick. So then what I'm going to do is I want to get some texture on this. I'm trying to simulate wrought iron. So let's get as tight as we can here so you can see. I'm trying to simulate wrought iron. Come on, focus. There we go. And wrought iron, it has been managed, or it's not managed. I'm sorry, this is not doing what I want. Pardon this technical difficulty. The BBC appreciates your patience. Okay, so I took off autofocus. So all I'm going to do is, this is a ball peen hammer. It's a very small one. There's the ball on the side, or on one side. That's a ball. It's a rounded shape. And then here it's a flat shape. So I'm just going to take the flat and just kind of go on here. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to put a flat on that side. Now, it's hard to keep track of. So one thing you can do is you can take and just turn it perpendicular. And now I can put that straight up. Now I know I'm hitting flat on that side. Then if I go flat on that side, all I'm doing is I'm doing this a little bit. And what it's doing is it's squaring it. So I just gave it a little bit of squaring. So now I've got a squared piece of copper. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take some of this off, about that much. And I'm using, I just had these, so it's not like I bought these for this. So I don't know how to tell you to buy them. But they're just some very light needle nose pliers. But see, this is what I'm going to use. I've got this really nice thick area before it goes needle nose, and it's very flat. See how that is? Nice and flat. And then I've got this hole in my small anvil here. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and put it in there, and you see I've just got a little tiny bit sticking out, just a little bit. Well, I'm going to hold that, and remember, I squared this up so it's gripping it very well. I'm going to put that there, and this time I'm going to take the ball side. I don't have to use the ball. I like using the ball. Gives it a little bit more texture. But I'm just taking that, and I'm not hammering this thing down. I'm tapping it right on top of that wire. Okay, so I do a little bit, and then I pick it up, raise it, twist it a quarter turn, give it a little bit more height. I'm not keeping it flush to where I just hammered it down to. I want that, I want to get more wire up. So I'm raising it up a little bit, and then I go back in there with the ball, and I hammer down a little bit more. Now that I've got kind of the size I want there, now I go flat, hit it a couple times, and there I just made a hand forged spike. So that is a spike, and it's in scale. So that's how you make a spike. All it is making sure that you can hold the wire over the hole in the anvil enough to not crush it, because at this, I could actually kind of crush the copper. But I want to do it enough so it doesn't slip, through the pliers as I'm hammering on it. And man, I'm telling you, that's as hard as I'm hammering. I am not hammering hard. I'm not trying to waste it, because if you do it too hard, it'll just bend over on you. You just want to flatten out the top of it. So did that make sense? Did everybody see that? I want to make sure that that works. Have to go shopping. Have a great day, Bill. Thanks a lot, Dark Blade. Have a good one. We'll see ya. So did that make sense? So when I've got that little flat top, I basically made a spike or a nail. That little trick, that gives you a lot, because if I can go back to our picture, that's what's on the bottom of our hinge. You see that on the bottom? That's the head of the spike I just created. Okay. And then John says, yeah, that's cool. Okay. So I just want to make sure everybody could see that and it came across. So now what I want to do is I don't want it to be tempered. That's not what I'm doing. When you heat metal and cool it quickly, in general terms, it gets hard and brittle. If you heat metal and let it cool naturally, in general terms, it becomes soft. So if you heat metal and you want to work it like I'm doing here, you're hammering it and you heat it up and you let it cool naturally just to room temperature, that's called annealing. And what annealing does is it heals the structure inside the metal that you've been hammering, because all those molecules are setting away, and then you're hammering on it and they're getting all kind of cattywampus. Well, when you heat them and you anneal it, they relax and everything kind of goes back together. If I had worked this for very much longer and not annealed it, then what it would do is it could start fracturing, it start cracking, because the molecules inside aren't bonding properly. By annealing, before I work it more, so I hammer it a little bit, then I reheat it. Annealing realigns the molecules, they're bonded better. I take it back out, I hammer it a little bit, I put it back in the heat, I heat it back up. That helps realign the molecules. See what happened? So if I'm doing that a lot, that's what I'm going to do. But there's other ways to work with this. Right now, because I'm hammering it, metal becomes what is called work hardened. The very act of hammering metal makes it hard. It's called work hardening. If you've ever tried to break a paper clip, right? Paper clip, pretty good piece of, those big paper clips. It's a pretty good piece of metal. Well, if you want to break one, what do? You start bending it. At first, it's really easy to bend it. But over time, two things happen. Number one, it heats up and it gets hard and brittle and breaks when you bend a paperclip back and forth. Absolutely the same thing happens when you're forging, when you're hammering metal, any metal. This can happen. So I want to make sure that if I'm hammering this thing too much, and as you're learning this and you're working on it, stuff like that, take it into fire. So I'm going to show you how to do that. What I have is, this is a little Burns-O-Matic torch, and man, I use this thing for everything on the bench. I've burnt specifically just plastic. I use it on all kinds of stuff. So this is really nice, and it's you can refill it, so you don't have to rebuy the thing. But I'm going to take it on about the medium setting. and I'll turn it on. And I want to bring this up red hot. Now, copper is going to transmit heat very, very well. So it would be a lot smarter for me to hold this like this. Other metals don't transfer heat as well. So you could probably hold the end, but just be safe. So I'm just going to bring that up. The first thing it's going to do is it'll start to discolor and it'll eventually turn red. Once it turns red, like right at the tip there, maybe I should do this under this fancy thing I got here. Once the tip turns red, then you're done. And you can just stop. That's it. Again, if I quench this in water right now, cool it quicker, brittle. But brittle is also stronger. If I let it just cool now, it's more malleable. It's going to be softer. So why I'm saying all this repetitively is I want to keep it annealed while I'm working with it, because now I still have to bend it and I have to do all these things to make it into this little hinge. But the other thing is at the end of it, I do want to heat it up and quench it. Because then when I've got everything, I don't even know where they're at. When I've got everything built up, I want them very stiff. I want them to be, don't bend anymore, because now I got to put them in here. So I hope that wasn't too long. And I hope it was a fair explanation of what I'm trying to do here. So, let's go over here. And the next thing I have to do, so I've just made the spike, right? That's all we've made so far. We're going to go back to the top down. And now we're going to make the two loops that go into, the wall. And that's really simple. Now, these are great pliers. See the ends of them? They're for jewelry making and stuff like that. They're also, I think I got them at Micromark. They're fantastic for twisting and making loops in wire. So I just bring that over like that. Okay. And there it is. And boy, that just was simple as all get out. Well, we're not done. So remember, it's supposed to look like it's been hand forged. So I'm just going to take it on here. Again, I'm not going that hard. And I'm going to flatten this out this way. Then I'm going to take this over the edge and get a little bit of a bend in there. I'm on the wrong side of my hammer. Get a little bend in there so it's centered up. And, mainly what I'm trying to do is get some patterning that's going to come out on this when I put some dry brushing or something, that's really what I'm looking for. The other thing, though, is I do want the hole in the center to be as small as possible, which I can't do quite with this. I need to get some water here. Hold on. So I want to get that hole smaller. So I got to clip this and bring this down a little bit more. So I'm just going to clip off some of the end. I am literally using tweezers on this one because it's so malleable. I don't even need my pliers. Maybe I do. Maybe I hammered it too much. Let's get in there. Let's get these guys. Other set of pliers. That's much better. And I'm bringing this in. There we go. Now I've got a much smaller hole because, okay, when you first put this on here and you mount it to the door, and I did the first one, I thought, boy, these things aren't going to be stable at all. Just a sec, I'll get back to my little anecdote here in a second. I want to also not overly flatten the base that's going to go into the wood. So that's why I went back here. So that one is done. I'm going to cut that off and make one more. Cut it off about that long. It wants to go in the wood. I don't necessarily want it to go all the way. Excuse me. It could, but I don't want it to. More water. Okay, so that process again. Take it over. Flatten it out. I still, and it would be nice if I didn't have to, but I have to cut a little bit away to get as tight as I want to get that small hole in there, because I do not want too big of a hole because it'll just make it too loose and floppy. That's a technical term, floppy. Pulled from the computer industry, of course. So anyway, there we go. That's going to fit in there. We got the other one. Perfect. I know I turned off the auto focus. I hope it's not too bad. Once I've got both of them on there, I can cut those off. And now I want to bend this so it's going to fit in the, to open the door. Okay. So that bend is a little bit funky. That bend is, you see that? So the bend comes up, and the first bend is going to define how far apart I'm going to put the two loops that go into the door frame. And then it's got to come over and bend again to go into the door. Once I make those two bends, then I want to anneal it and it's ready to mount. Okay. So I'll show you how to make those. I want to go in here, and these two pliers were like a set that I got a long time ago, and man, I use them on the bench all the time. They're great. This one has a really nice needle nose taper that I don't see on a lot of tools, but man, I use it for making grab rails on tanks and all manner of things. So it's great. So there's my first bend. All I did was I grabbed it as far down as I wanted it. Again, the separation of those two, that's going to define, gosh, get around there. There we go. That's going to define how stable it is on the door frame itself. Then I'll have one more bend, and it's about the same distance that I have here, and I bend it straight down, and that's the part that will hammer into the door. And that is your rat tail hinge. So now we are going to, I got to get a little bit of water, not to drink, but to quench in, because quenching is a big part of this. If I don't quench this, it's not going to keep its shape. It would be possible, as I'm trying to mount this, to just munch it. It's copper. It's really pretty darned. I'm trying to get the right water here. I got everything in the way so I can get my water. The copper has been annealed, and that softness is going to keep it from being usable. It's so tiny. My hands, I'm trying to grab this thing, and if it's soft like that, I just crush it. So there we go. I'm just going to heat everything up, try to get it up to red. And once it's red, just like that, I just drop it in. It's gonna cool off very quickly. It gives a real nice patina to the copper as well. It's nice and dark at this point. And that is what I'll end up painting. I mean, I even thought about not painting it because it had such a nice look. See if that makes sense. I want to make sure you can see. how the hinge works. This is how the hinge. I'm going to separate these. They've got water on them, so they don't want to stay separated. But this is how the hinge sits in the door and mounts into the door. It's just like that. Let me get this out of here to get a better focus. So it mounts into the door like that. Can you see that? So with two of those, the door is actually super stable. It's a really nice hinge. And the door, I was afraid, man, is this thing going to be loose or floppy or something like that? Not at all. It's just great. So I really like it. I thought it was a great little hinge. And when I do these things, it's important to try to find period stuff and remake it, because part of doing this stuff is the interest in how those things were made. If you're in a military dioramas, why did they use this vehicle? What did this vehicle have on it? How was this vehicle deployed? It's the same thing when I'm doing something like this, where it's semi-historical. I mean, in Raymond Feist's book, it's not. It's on a different world. It's not Europe, but it's all couched in European culture kind of things. It's almost like a prehistory, like Tolkien was. This could have happened, previous to our civilization. But the point is, by making those references, I have to go and do that research into our own European history and our own building techniques and materials, and what it looked like and what was its function and form. It's so interesting that I don't know. It's just really fun for me. And if that is your interest, I think you're going to enjoy it. So I had a great time doing it. So now, not done. Why don't I take a look at the other stuff? These guys were made out of the tin and the galvanized steel. So these straps, I wanted to use real steel. I didn't have to. I think by using, that's just the black tape. I think, using plastic would do the same thing. But again, it's fun. I'm reading about it. I'm actually forging little things. It's enjoyable. It makes the task of building it a lot more enjoyable. I'm reading, I'm learning, and doing it. One of the things I wanted to say about these guys and the machine before I got and we did the demo is how the machine works in prepping your materials. It's kind of a machine that this is my 3-in-1 machine for working with steel. And I got it because I do a lot of this kind of work. Where the heck is it? I got it here somewhere. Sorry, folks. Here it is. I got it from Micromark. It does 3 things, but you can do a lot with it, of course. And it is a shear, it is a brake, and it is a roller. So here's the steel. These I made or I used that material for these. And those are, for the bar. And they needed to be heavier. Just it didn't look right to have the other steel that I use, which is tin. That's the tin, and it's 20 millimeters, so it's quite a bit thinner. And so I use this for the bar, and it's pretty thick. This, pretty thin. But in both instances, I did the same processes that I did for the copper. I sheared them on the shear, and that's what a shear does. It shears, or like cutting shears, it shears steel. So what it does, it has this big guillotine style blade that comes down and cuts the steel. But the cool thing about it is I can cut a small strip of steel that thick, that wide, and it's clean, meaning that there's other options for cutting this kind of steel like these. And they work wonderfully. But unless you're careful which ones you buy, some of them have teeth on them. And there's a specific purpose. If you don't have the teeth, it doesn't want to cut through. The teeth, the very, very small teeth on there are great. They grip the steel as you're cutting, trying to, cut through it and stuff, but it leaves a rough edge. It's got all these serrations on the edge, and you got to do something with them. Doesn't look right. The other thing that does is when it's cutting, it deforms. Your piece of steel will curl as you're cutting with these. And you're also following a line that you could vary and deviate from. Just like earlier in the preparation of my woodworking that we're doing for this, I'm able to use this machine to prepare the steel that I'm using for these brackets. And I can cut a perfectly straight piece of steel dimensionally, and so I have repeatability. So yeah, I'm a tool freak. I love tools, and my whole shop, is about that. So yeah, I bought one. I don't know that you buy one, but I want you to know that the advantages of it are great. Now, that's not even talking about the break, and what I mean by break is when you want to bend a piece of steel, it's called breaking in manufacturing terms. And so there's a break along here, so I can cut and bend pieces of steel like a long channel. Not easy to do in a home shop. The other thing it has is a roller on top. So the roller can I'm going to try to go back over here. The roller, I had other pictures. What did I bleeding? Okay, so maybe that's a no-go. Thought I had pictures of the roller. The roller allows you to form like a cylinder. You could make a cylinder like a tube. So it's a neat machine. $300-$400 these days, but a great machine if you're going to do a lot of this stuff. I do enough woodworking and metalworking because I think they complement each other. I think steel and wood work beautifully together. That yeah, makes sense for me, and so I have it. Okie doke. I don't think we're quite done because hey, Homefront Forge has to go. Thanks so much, Homefront Forge. Thanks again, Bill, for sharing your incredible talent and infectious enthusiasm. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. That's really nice. I do want to show a couple of slides here because, sorry, I have a new patron, which I'm really, really thrilled about. Sorry, I just got a bunch of stuff. If anybody has any questions about those, I'd love to talk about it. Man, I can't see anything. See, this thing really ticks me off. I have a new patron, Adriana Bruni. Thank you very much, Adriana, for becoming a new patron. And I wanted to talk about the patron site. See, when I exported this time, I'm on a different computer today. And it said it would change stuff. And it's like, okay, the changes weren't bad early on. Of course, the last slide I want to show you is all janked up. But I just want to talk about this because on Patreon this week, I finally figured out how to upload a downloadable images. And so I posted a couple of those up there on Patreon, and it's for our top tier patrons, John and Evan and folks. So I say folks, there's nobody else there. I only have two. But in there, I give you like free stuff. And so for other people, it's $3. Folks, that's the smallest thing I could do. I didn't think it was, for $3. I do think they're really nice images. They're of the shop, and one is of some It's a trail and road that I go up, and it's just some beautiful trees, which I use for a background, a screensaver, and it's just lovely. And so I hope you appreciate it. But you can either buy them, or if you're a patron, you get them. Okay, so tonight is the third Friday of the month, but man, I got to tell you, I am beat, and I have an event tomorrow that we're hosting. And so I'm going to be getting stuff ready. So I'm very, very sorry to say it's not going to be the 3 hour. John, if you and I want to connect after this, we can certainly talk about possibly tomorrow night, if that would work for you, sir, and Evan, or possibly even Sunday. Um, but man, we've just got a big event that we're hosting tomorrow here at the house for family, and I'm sorry, tonight's going to be rough, because what happens, folks, and what I'm pleading my case for here, is that on every Friday we have a group build. And if you're at the top of patrons, like John is, we do it every single Friday for 2 hours. And then once per month for all patrons, there is a 3 hour group build that all patrons from my patron channel can come and join. It's typically not a lot of people. And for that reason, I think I'm going to change the timing of it. John, that's one of the ones I want to talk to you about, and we've talked about it before, but maybe changing that so that more people can attend. It is from 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific time. And for folks on the East Coast, though Evan's done it, before, and other folks have, it's really late. And so I'm looking at Saturday, possibly a morning, something like that. So maybe, more people can come on. And that's not this. That is not the Friday. That is set. We do that every Friday at noon. That is the group build for our patrons, and it's a lot of fun. We get together, and we just most of the time it's just we're jaw jacking. We're just talking about cool new stuff. But sometimes modeling occurs. I can promise you that. So thank you very much, everybody. And John, you're the best, buddy. Thank you so much. John is really, really great. John has been around forever and has been on the show a couple of times. So he has some fans here too. So thank you very much, John. I really, really do appreciate it. Everybody else, thank you so much for coming on today. I had a wonderful time this week putting this together. I want to, this is a non-political, what I'm going to say is non-political. And I just want to make sure that that's understood. But what happened this week goes beyond politics. What happened this week in politics was very difficult for a lot of people. And I just want you to think about something. When you think about being a kid and you think about the things that you enjoyed about life, it's usually just one little thing, right? It's like that one summer we did this one thing, or there was this one person that I met. It's those one little instances. So if you're trying to find a way this week to kind of just settle your mind, to just try to get back and find a center, try to find a center. It's those little tiny moments that you remember. Does that make sense? If you think of a summer as a child, maybe there was that one time you went camping with your grandparents, or that one time you went floating on a river, or that one time. And what I mean by that is that whole summer can be defined by a wonderful moment. Create a moment today. Create a moment this weekend. Just try to find a little time to create a little moment, because that little moment can define your whole summer. It can define a whole minute of your life. I'm not trying to get all philosophical, but I needed to do that, because this week for me, I thought about this and what's happening in the world today. And sometimes we just need a minute. And by creating a minute, by creating a memory that you're going to remember later, just needs to be one. Doesn't have to be your whole life. Just create 1 minute. That might be a little easier way to handle some of this stuff. So hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you get a chance to get on the bench. I had a wonderful time today. I hope you did too. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.